Welcome to the Mexico City Autodrome, a circuit which somehow always seems to match its giddy altitude with equally high drama. Wheelbases come here tonight to film the colourful curtain call to a momentous season. A season of incredibly close racing, a season of Matra monopoly and Stewart brilliance, a season thankfully devoid of the tragedies that scarred the sport last year, a season which has seen Brabham's fortunes re-emerge, a season which has seen Jochen Rindt get that long, elusive first Grand Prix victory. Many of these people are sitting in their cars for the last time. In fact, we've been rather amused to find that the pits have been more like a football dressing room with talks of transfers and contracts than the pits we're accustomed to. Many drivers are moving, many managers are making new plans. We have talked to them all. They're going to tell us what they're going to do and try and dispel some of the rumours. And of course, we're going to take a close look at Jackie Stewart, the champion who has been called here the man without a car.
For Stewart, there's little of the tension of last year's Mexican Grand Prix, when after 4 nervous weeks of waiting, the World Championship lay almost within his grasp. This year, the title is safe, after a season starting with 5 brilliant wins in the first 6 events. At the moment, his main problem is to thread the Ford Maverick, America's latest challenge to the compact European sports cars, through the chaotic traffic of Mexico City. But Stewart still needs a win, partly to equal the late Jim Clark's record of 7 Grand Prix victories in a year, and partly to end his championship season on the right note. After failing to finish in the last 2 events, a last-minute victory here could let him sign off with a flourish. On the circuit, in the relative safety of the world he knows best, Stewart waits for the real work to begin. He knows exactly what he wants from his car. His team manager, Ken Tyrrell, says that Jackie can read a car better than anyone he has ever known.
That we're going round the corner, getting, 3/4 way round on roll, and then the car's hitting the bump rubber and just going out immediately. When that oversteer comes in, it's very, very abrupt. It feels like bump rubber oversteer.
Stewart is highly professional and a shrewd and skillful driver, but so are many others. What else does the team have to make it so successful?
Well, I think we were very well prepared for it, Barry. I think that the big thing in motor racing nowadays is to have a team that's is properly prepared right at the beginning of the season to try and get a few races under its belt before it really gets going. And Ken Tyrrell and the mechanics, the Matra designers and everyone else really put the thing together in a very good package. And really it was only left for me to drive the car because I think we had a pretty perfect setup.
Ken Tyrrell, the man in charge of the perfect setup, has an unrivaled reputation for spotting driving talent. Apart from Stewart, he has Johnny Servo Gavin in the 4-wheel drive Matra, who, unlike his teammate, has had to be content with 6th and 7th places in the last 2 events. The 3rd team driver, Jean-Pierre Beltoise, has done better, with a 2nd, 2 thirds and a 4th. But a Matra win at Mexico is the aim of all 3. A thoughtful Colin Chapman in the pit that saw the Lotus triumph last year. Car number 2 is driven by Jochen Rindt, leading the team in place of last year's winner and world champion Graham Hill, still in hospital after an appalling smash in the American Grand Prix last month. What could have been the cause? Colin Chapman gives Wheelbase his own diagnosis.
I think it's pretty well established beyond doubt now that the problem was a sudden deflation of the tyre at speed on the back edge of the circuit. And this unfortunately does occur sometimes with a tubeless tyre if it should lose pressure. And this seems to have been due to a slow puncture that Graham picked up probably 2 or 3 laps earlier when he spun off on the oil onto the infield. There comes a point where, as a tyre loses pressure, the critical speed at which it will come off the rim drops. And I think at around 140 miles an hour, which was the speed he was going, if the pressure had dropped as low as probably 6 or 7 pounds per square inch due to the puncture, then the tyre would come off the rim and of course the car goes out of control.
Is there anything we can do in the future to keep tyres on even at this low pressure?
Well, there certainly is. After this accident, I've been even more certain that this is a risk in racing which we shouldn't allow the drivers to have to take. And we're going to work over the winter to devise a new type of wheel or a new type of tyre bead such that it just cannot come off the rim even when it loses all the pressure.
Chapman's technical trailblazing made Lotus one of the first in the race to try 4-wheel drive earlier this year. Now John Miles's Lotus is one of only 2 cars here with this system. The other team car has 2-wheel drive, as Chapman hedges his bets. Has 4-wheel drive been a failure?
We did assume that the 4-wheel drive car would be more successful than it has been, and we did put our major effort into 4-wheel drive, and therefore we kept our, what in effect was our 68 cars as a backup for this year, and we've ended up running them all the season. We're going to build a new 2-wheel drive car, but we're also going to do a bit more work on the 4-wheel drive, see whether we can make it go any better.
So you've more confidence in it than some people are expressing here?
I don't know that it's a question of confidence. I think it's a question that you've got to keep at it until you're quite sure that there's nothing more that you could try that might make it better, and I don't think we've worked through all the possibilities yet.
Former BRM driver, Pedro Rodriguez, is the local boy made good, a hero to the vast crowd. Today, he's driving a Ferrari for the North American racing team. But next season, the Works Ferrari team will have a car of their own, with a flat 12 engine, an attraction powerful enough to whisk Jackie Ickx back into the fold after his year with Jack Brabham. So the unmistakable Ferrari scream of mechanical rage could well be the sound for 1970.
The orange McLaren cars have had a mixed season. In Formula One, they haven't won a race like they did last year, though Bruce McLaren has only failed to finish in 1 race and is lying 3rd in the championship. But in the Can-Am series, it has, of course, been a different story. They have absolutely monopolised the event, 1st and 2nd in every race.
And we've been unlucky, I think. We've had quite a few engine failures and so on when we've been in reasonably good positions. Dennis has been quite competitive in quite a few races. He's been on the front row of the grid. I think in probably 3 or 4 races. And last weekend we had both cars right up very high on starting positions at Watkins Glen and had incredibly bad luck. But right now, for instance, Denny is running fastest, quite a bit quicker than anyone else, which looks kind of good for the weekend. These cars are fairly old. We're building new ones for next year and we're looking forward to much better things.
Denny, this is known as the happiest team in Formula One. Why is this?
I don't really know. I think because it's probably got a very young leader in Bruce and a very understanding person. And it's fairly easy to get along with. Everybody gets along with Bruce. And I think this is really the reason why.
From a young team leader from down under to the oldest, Jack Brabham. Brabham says he'll be on his own next year when Jackie Ickx goes to Ferrari.
Jackie, you've had 2 great wins this year in the German Grand Prix in Canada, and yet you're leaving Jack Brabham. Why?
Well, I'm leaving Jack for few reasons that I haven't to explain. But the first thing, I haven't leave Ferrari in bad terms. That means we have been always very good friends. And I think with the big help of Fiat for next year and the year after, I think it's the right thing to do now is to run a Ferrari, because a Ferrari, I think, for next year may be a very, very good car.
Brabham himself is still suffering badly with an injured foot after a crash at Silverstone in July, and he'll be going back to hospital again. But he's the eternal surprise. Still very fast, and underrating him, as so often before, would be fatal.
There is one giant question mark hanging over next season. Who are you going to drive for? What are you going to drive?
Right at this very moment, I don't know. I have various opportunities or places I could go. It's very much a question of me trying to consider which is going to be the most competitive, offer the development programs that I think are necessary now in Grand Prix racing. And I think I will certainly stay with Ken Tyrrell, who I consider to be the finest team manager in the world at this time. I think anything that he puts together is going to be competitive.
You've given Matra their best ever season. Why are you leaving Matra?
Well, I very much want to drive a 4-engine car. In fact, I've insisted that my next year's motor racing is with a Ford behind me. Keith Duckworth and Mike Costin at Cosworth Engineering have produced a an engine extraordinaire. I mean, it shouldn't be as good as it is, but it is. And at this time, unless you have a Ford, you're really not competitive.
Stewart's closest rival, in his own opinion, is Austrian Jochen Rindt, who may give him his toughest competition in 1970. Rindt, like Stirling Moss, is a real fighter who is slow to admit defeat, and he's staying with Colin Chapman and Lotus. And Rindt himself, how does he rate next year's prospects?
I think it's going to be Jackie Stewart. And mind you, I don't know which car he's going to drive. And, you know, Jack Brabham is always a problem. You know, X gone to Ferrari, and I think that's his lot. So...
You haven't much confidence in the Ferrari?
No, I think in order to win, you've got to have a Ford Cosmos engine.
But for the moment, next year can take care of itself. What matters is here and now. Against the background of a motorized Ascot, a lot of hard work under the hot Mexican sun. The minutes tick away towards the start. This is what has brought them all together, models and mechanics, drivers and devotees, on a hot Sunday afternoon in October.
Just 5 minutes to go before we start the last 202 miles of a championship trail that's already involved these drivers in over 2,000 miles of driving, all the way from South Africa, across Europe, to North America, and now down to here. A crowd of 150,000 is reported to have packed into this stadium, and now we're waiting for the flag to fall. The man in the pole position is a man who's never seen that position before this season, Jack Brabham. Teammate Jackie Hicks, in his last drive for Brabham, got 1 minute 43.6 seconds, and the two Brabhams sit very firmly on the front row of the grid. One face is missing, the bristling moustache of Graham Hill, missing his first race after 113 consecutive Grand Prix.
One other name is missing. Fuel trouble put McLaren's car out on the warming-up lap before the start. Stewart sets off in fine style, leading the field into the first lap. Close behind him, Jackie Hicks and teammate Brabham, then Rindt, Halm and Beltoise, followed by Courage, Surtees, Rodriguez and Siffert. Past the grandstand and into the second lap. Stewart still in the lead, with Hicks and Brabham hard on his heels, and Halm chasing Rindt for all his worth. Down the long 160-mile-an-hour straight into the fast tightening right-hander at the end. The long sweeping folds of the S's lead into the short back straight, and then the long banked curve into the pit straight for the start of another lap. Two laps gone, already John Miles's Lotus is in the pits with fuel trouble. Another 2 laps and he's out for good. Canadian driver George Eaton brings in his BRM. Transmission trouble, an old BRM problem, puts him out on lap 7. By lap 10, Halm takes the lead from Hicks, who took it from Stewart 4 laps before. But Hicks isn't going to let Halm have things all his own way. Further back, battling for 3rd place, come Rindt and Stewart, with Brabham as the filling in the sandwich. Stewart was having his work cut out to keep ahead of Rindt, who was aiming to repeat his victory at Watkins Glen. Further down the field, things had been going wrong. On lap 5, Piers Courage and Joe Siffert, after keeping close company for 2 laps, got tangled up at the hairpin. Courage was able to restart and carry on with the race, but the Rob Walker Lotus hit the bank and the Swiss driver was forced to retire. Jackie Oliver hanging on to 7th place in his BRM. For once, the team's luck was to hold, and he was to finish 6th. But fate hadn't finished with Lotus. Rindt started to drop back, and on lap 22, he retired with a broken wishbone. A sad contrast with the team's victory at last year's event, when Hill took the World Championship. Still, Hulme and Ickx fight for the lead with half the race over. Barry Gill in the pits.
That's the halfway story. Lap 32, halfway through the race. And Denny Hulme is 6 seconds ahead of Jackie Ickx in 2nd place and a full 18 seconds ahead of Jack Brabham, who's lying 3rd place, a lonely race with Stewart seemingly falling back. Then there's a tremendous gap before we get Beltoise, and nobody else is on the same lap.
Now it's lap 54, and Surtees' turn to drop out with gearbox trouble. The BRM Jinx is back in strength. Sylvia Moser comes in for petrol, but a fuel leak puts him out 2 laps later. Stewart still trying hard, but still firmly in 4th place. A disappointing end to his World Championship year. And Rodriguez, a disappointment for the local supporters, as he trails in 7th position. Ickx still 2nd, but he makes sure of being runner-up to Stewart in the championship, as well as to Hulme in the race. For Hulme, it's an easy win as he threads the S's for the last time. Although Ickx tried hard, the McLaren driver was able to pull away whenever he really wanted to. For the crowd, not an exciting cliffhanger of a race. Hulme takes the checkered flag and Stewart the championship.
Fabulous, Bruce. How about it?
Barry. Oh, I'm delighted.
I've never seen you so tense even when you're driving.
Oh, that was terrific. That was really a good one to win because he had to go hard absolutely all the way and he beat everybody and
The
really
car
did
sounded beautiful.
It ran just perfectly, thank you, Barry.
Was there any time you were worried? I mean, Ickx seemed to be
all the
catching
time,
him.
all the time.
First, Hulme in a McLaren, followed by Ickx and Brabham in Brabhams. All 3 used Ford Cosworth engines, Goodyear DG20 tyres and Gulf fuel.